The story so far, the Cannondale SuperSix that we featured in our fake warranty video probably a few months ago now. It's had over 140,000 views, you might have seen it already. This is the Cannondale that had that really soft, flexible section at the back of the head tube. Quite scary, wouldn't like to be riding it myself. So here's where we're up to. We saw the problem, we sent the customer back to their dealer at Cannondale's request, that was Pedal Power in Scotland. They initially looked at it, thought it was the customer's fault by running a really worn out bearing or setting up the headset wrong. Anyway, sent it off to Cannondale. Cannondale UK examined it. They said, doesn't look safe to ride to us either, but it does look like the customer has damaged it by running the headset in the wrong configuration like we explained in the last video. They retained that frame and they sold him another frame absolutely identical. That frame got sent to Pedal Power in Scotland, and while the customer was there collecting it from them, he gave that headset piece a bit of a squish and said, that still feels pretty soft to me, but Pedal Power dismissed it and he sent them down to us to get the bike built. We saw the bike and you saw everything in that previous video. It had exactly the same problem, exactly the same soft carbon and a bunch of other problems as well. So we sent it straight back to Cannondale UK, and this is where we're picking up our story. So Cannondale UK received that second frame and they decided to refer it off to Cannondale Europe. And they also issued another new frame to the customer via Pedal Power. This time, the Generation 3 Cannondale SuperSix, where the one we sent back was the Generation 2 SuperSix Evo. After the customer had been to collect this new frame, we heard back from Cannondale Europe via Pedal Power that apparently that Gen 2 SuperSix Evo that had the soft carbon was like that by design. So what do you reckon? I think I smell bullshit. Now, in my mind, if that were true, on the very first time that we discovered this soft carbon, we probably would have had an email straight back from Cannondale without them needing to collect the bike that said, it's supposed to be like that. Here's all the technical information. Here's all the safety checks. It's absolutely fine. Nothing to see here. Carry on. That is not what happened. Remember, Cannondale UK kept the first frame thinking it was unsafe to ride. The second frame that had the same fault, they referred back to Cannondale Europe. It's Cannondale Europe that has since said, this is by design. Since then, Cannondale UK, also known as Cycling Sports Group or CSG, is now set to close its offices. So there's a little bit of anxiety around whether or not if we send the frame back again, we might even get it back again. So that's where we are now. Now, there is one small thing here. I've worked on dozens of these Generation 2 SuperSix Evos, and I've never seen this problem before. The particular model in question was actually a fairly small part of their range. It was a frame only in a very niche color at the very top of the range. I think only the Pro team really rode. So there is a chance that could have been a batch problem, but I guess we're into the realms of speculation now. We should probably just move on with actually fixing something. Let's take a look at this frame then. This is the frame that has apparently been inspected by Cannondale's highest professionals, and it's meant to be absolutely, completely perfect. I have to say, first off, it looks pretty good. The headset is definitely intact, and testing it with the headset bearings, this is all a nice fit, and that is lovely and smooth. It's quite a rough finish in there, but you won't see that when it's all covered up, that's the point. But the first thing that draws my attention is down here in the seat tube area, and you can see quite a lot of paint overspray, and there's like a really rough finished area if you just put them about finger depth. So I'm going to go down there and just clean that out. It should be away from anything that's going to creak, but why take the risk? It's only going to be a very quick job just to clean that out. The brake mounts are my favourite type of brake mounts, as they're elevated, which means if we do need to face them, there's plenty of material there to work with. But it does actually look like someone has been in here and done some sort of facing work after it's been painted. So it's definitely had some sort of inspection happen on this. I've definitely seen better masking jobs and paint finishing. This actually looks okay. The one thing to look for on these frames is the depth of material between this bolt hole, because these Cannondales really suffered from a problem where when you had an impact on your mech hanger, rather than the mech hanger bending, the bolt would just rip through this tiny little slither. I've got some pictures of what happened to my bike actually, and I had a right warranty fight on my hands with Cannondale at the time. But eventually the argument was, well, surely the mech hanger is meant to break before the frame does, therefore it's a bit of a design problem. Mine was a lot worse than this. This one's actually got at least 1.5 millimeters of material, so probably one of the better ones I've seen. When we come to the bottom bracket, just taking our simple go, no-go gauge, 45.95. Remember, this should fairly easily fit in this hole because this should be a 46mm hole, and there is no chance. I can sort of wedge it in and I can see a big gap around here, so that's not cool. And the non-drive side is marginally better, but it still doesn't go in much more than about 1 millimeter. But I can't really see a gap. So we have a decision to make whether we're actually going to fix this or not, because remember, the second that we touch it, we're going to void a warranty warranty, lols. So the fork, you're gonna love this. Quite a jazzy looking fork actually, I think kind of like it. The brake mounts on this have definitely been touched by someone. These have definitely been faced. You can see all the score mark. That's fantastic to see. You can see where paint has been and been cut away and removed. So that's always really encouraging in my mind because someone has actually QC'd it after it's come out of paint. So happy days. Again, all these axle mounts look good as well, and the threads have been cut. Again, I can see that someone has actually run a tap through there and has cleaned those threads out. So all looking good, except for there is a massive ridge here. Now, if I just grab my microphone, you can probably hear that with my fingernail. There's a ridge. And if I put the bearing on there, this bearing rocks on that ridge. We don't have a good surface there. So really, that should have been sanded down so it's a nice, smooth, flat surface. So the bearing is sitting perfectly flush and having really good contact with this bearing. So yeah, we have some work to do, sadly. Here's the dilemma. Do we fix it and put this right, like we would probably normally do, or do we go by Cannondale's instructions and don't touch it because we're going to void the warranty? Now, what we've learned from Cannondale, that something completely unrelated will probably void the warranty somewhere else. But we've spoken to our rider. He's absolutely exasperated by the whole situation, has got absolutely no faith in the warranty whatsoever, and has asked us to go ahead and fix the bike and make it as good as we possibly can, and that's what we're going to do. Also, we have the instructions here, and I think whenever you're building a bike like this, you really do have to get the actual frame manual because there are some real specifics you have to pay attention to. So Cannondale have this little seat post wedge, which they've actually labelled grease and carbon paste. These often get installed badly, but now they've actually got a corrective action that comes with that, where it tells you now need to use a little bit of Teflon tape because otherwise it might creak. Again, we're also going to go down and clean some of that stuff out. In fact, this is actually a good bit of consumer advice. If you're buying a really, really expensive bike and you're concerned about the workmanship and how well it's been built, download the instruction manual because it is all there. All the torque settings that you need, all the diagrams you need are all here. And you can hold them to account. I mean, right here is a really good example. This is bottom bracket PF30A. It tells you 46 millimeters. It tells you exactly what it should be. So there's no excuse for that being undersized when it's here in Cannondale's manual telling you exactly what size it should be. Things to look out for in these, which nearly every bike mechanic gets wrong, is do not apply grease when you're putting a bottom bracket in. It's in the instructions. I bet you nearly every bike shop just gets that big pot of grease, smathers it around the inside of the bottom bracket and then presses it in. It's quite clear. It's in the instructions of nearly all carbon frames. Do not use grease. So Cannondale are famous for some really funky cable routing. So pay attention to these. This is another thing that quite a lot of shops get wrong. Actually installing the rear mech hanger. Here it's telling you to actually grease the frame here to avoid any creaking and to use Loctite 242 for the retaining bolt as well. Now this is something I'm damn certain that they don't do in bike shops. They just unpack this from a box. It's very, very rare that you'll ever see that with any sort of grease on it. And as you can see, there's 4 pages of instructions about how to install the seat post binder, which is quite incredible. Again, using various types of grease and carbon construction gel in all exactly the right places. And of course, all the instructions about how you set up the very specific Cannondale headset units as well. All the instructions are there. So again, if you're doing this at home, get the instructions, I really recommend it. Or if you're getting your bike shop to do it, get the instructions, be aware of it, and when you come and collect your bike, just ask a couple of questions. Have you put grease in the bottom bracket? And if they confidently say, yes, yes, of course we did, and said, oh, well, maybe you shouldn't have done. I think quite a few bike shops will be surprised by that. First job, let's get this seat post installed, and then we can start thinking about the bottom bracket and what we're going to do with it. So before I go much further, I think we need to have a look at this bottom bracket and get a full picture of what is going on here. So I'm going to use an internal micrometer and just take some key adjustments just to see how far this is ovalized. And they're all a little bit undersized, which is always good because we can work with undersized. I want a bit of a win here because if you remember, the customer had already commissioned a Hambini bottom bracket. This is for PF30, however, this is PF30A. So we actually have a different bottom bracket on its way. Now Hambini has been very generous. He's allowed us to pull these bearings out and just send in the bare shell, so we don't have the full expense of another bottom bracket, but it is another expense which is like, come on Cannondale, you could have helped us out with that. Now the nice thing is there is a slight bit of misalignment, but that misalignment is being caused by the holes being small in different areas. We don't have to worry about the misalignment too much because it's so minor. By the time we have the Hambini bottom bracket in, it's going to be solved anyway. The important thing is that before we even attempt to squeeze a perfectly sized 46mm bottom bracket into a definitely undersized hole, is that we need to give this a little bit of wiggle room. So we need to open this hole out. So we've got here the Park tool. This is the 45.94 reamer. So this still might not be big enough. So we still might have to go back in there and finish it with a honing tool, but this should bring us to a perfectly round hole. It's going to be a lot easier to keep a round hole round. So what we're going to do now is try and bring this hole up to much closer to 46mm. We're just going to use a cylinder honing tool, a drill, and to start off with, we're going to start using our Hambini bottom bracket until that 45.95 fits in a little bit easier. And then after that, we're going to go back to our bore micrometer and we're going to try and bring this up to 45.98. 45.99, perfect. Just to show you what that should look like with the Hambini gauge, fairly easy fit. The 46 doesn't go all the way in. Next job is to sort this fork out. I've got some gloves on because we need to do some hand sanding. So this is just going to be a case of keep everything wet and just steady as we go. We're just trying to take off these ridges. Look at that. For the amount of time that took, how Cannondale couldn't do it. And that's all we need. And now the bearing will sit super solid, no rocking, no creaking. It's easy. I don't know why it doesn't get done. One last thing before we start building, and that is this little mech hanger. So this bolt actually already comes pre-Loctited, so I'll let them off that. But if you're reconstructing it, make sure you Loctite that bolt. Frame prep all done. Next thing we do is build this. I'm going to lay our cables, roll time lapse. We're done. I think we can call this project over, completed. I haven't fitted that hideous green bar tape and saddle, etc. That's up for the customer to do, I think. But I'm so glad we got this customer sorted. The bike runs absolutely perfectly. I think they're going to be really, really happy with it. Did we do the right thing? We have one perfect bike, one void warranty. What would you do? If you enjoyed this sort of content, let me know. What did you think about the whole project, start to finish? Get down in the comments, fire it all up. I'm really, really keen to know what side of the fence you sit on in this. Okay, until the next one, take it easy.